Let me begin by saying one thing, Patrick. This week, everywhere I have gone, everybody has said we need a new paradigm for Africa. We need a new economic development paradigm for Africa. We need a new growth paradigm for Africa. And I have to say, I have been feeling a little bit low because I kind of feel like we do know what we need to do. And so to have AFDB, AU, and UNECA actually hand to the world a paper that says this is our paradigm. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just take a minute to just clap for them, because we do have a paradigm and we don't take, and everybody's coming to supposedly fix it for us. So let's just give them a round of applause. Audanapat, sorry. Okay, so let me tell you what stood out to me for this report to begin with. The first one was that the point you made, my brother Kevin, the point you made on the cost of capital and the fact that we are seen as a high-risk continent, and as a result, our cost of capital is very high. And I really like that slide you showed and the importance of us making sure that we keep sharing that information. Yesterday, I chaired a panel of credit rating agencies, and they were adamant that everything is over and above board. You know, there are no issues around it. I do know that there are issues we need to deal with around insecurity, etc. But nevertheless, there are also other facts that we need to share with them. So I was really struck with that statistic that you shared, and the fact that we remain a high investment risk country. The other thing that struck me was the point that you made around our investment efficiency gap of 39%, which is 10% points higher than Asia, and more than twice that of Europe. So this means that debt is weighing so much on us. It actually means that we are having to make choices that at best is immoral. We're having to choose between investing in our children. We're having to choose between making investment in a woman when she goes to give birth versus paying our debt. These are immoral choices that we are having to make. And then the third thing that I was really struck by was the net outflows on the continent. How much is leaving the continent? I was really struck by that 500 and something billion figure.
6 billion per day.
I mean, we like to say that we have 100 billion deficit on our annual infrastructure cost. We know that with 90 billion, we can pretty much eradicate malaria, okay? And yet, we are losing that much money. There's just something fundamentally flawed with that. That figure really blew me when I saw the presentation. And then the final one I have to say is thank you for not dropping the transformation agenda. Last year, I made a bet with Prof that transformation was a buzzword of 2024. So it's great to see that transformation remains important. But in the report, Prof talked about, you know, the fact that we need to diversify our economies. It continues to be a fundamental challenge. He talked about the fact that we need to improve productivity. Our productivity levels remain very low. And in asset, we have a definition of transformation, growth with depth, and it's DEPTH. And it says, unless we diversify our economies, unless we become export competitive, and export competitive means not being at the mercy of commodity fluctuations, but like the Honorable Vice President said, it's about recognizing that we can add value to our raw materials and be competitive. It's about improving our productivity. It's about using technology effectively. And it's about all of this leading to human well-being. So Patrick, if you can just bear with me for a second, I want to kind of like just focus on a couple of things that I felt are really important as we progress. The first one I had was investing in skills and knowledge. And Your Excellency, when you were speaking, I felt as if you and I had had a pre-conversation before I came in. We like to talk about our demographic dividend, but the truth is, a number of countries are already losing that demographic dividend. If you go to North Africa, they are starting to lose the demographic dividend. And very soon, a lot of sub-Saharan Africa will. But let's go back to 1947. And let's go back to the education in Zimbabwe. Look around the world. Look at some of the best brains in the world come from Zimbabwe. And then let's go to Kenya. Okay? What happened in Kenya? Uganda, which was another highly skilled and educated country, okay, went into crisis. And the Ugandans moved to Kenya. And look at Kenya today, okay? So the importance of skills and knowledge to transform our economy cannot be underestimated. It has to be a number one priority on our transformation agenda. Regional integration has been spoken about so well by my brother. I'm not going to talk about it. And Her Excellency also referenced regional integration. But honestly, how long are we going to talk about the 1.96 billion market? How long are we going to talk about the potential of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? How long are we going to sign protocols that we don't implement? So, I'm not going to talk about data. I'm just going to talk about the political economy. We need to think regional and act local. This is the only way in which we are going to compete effectively with the world. It's the only way in which we are going to transform our countries. If we are really honest, of the 54, 55 countries on the African continent, only five can stand on their own. The rest of us are interdependent. Yet we spend an inordinate amount of time, as Prof said, looking out rather than looking at trading with each other. We've got to stop it. And if I may, I sat at the UNECA meeting recently and I was heartbroken when I listened to African leaders talk about the challenges of trading with each other because of bilateral agreements with the United States, because of bilateral agreements with Europe, because they gave a long list of examples. And since we are in Africa House, I can be honest. I don't think the United States thought about bilateral agreements with anybody, let alone us, when they made their choices. So why are we making choices that affect our ability to trade with each other, build centers of excellence, and grow and transform our economy? Thirdly, women. Okay, we keep leaving 50% of our skills base behind. We keep leaving 50% of our labor force behind. Okay, ASAD has just done studies that says that women's economic and financial inclusion on the continent will not be realized till 2093. We cannot transform our continent when half of our population are left behind. We cannot transform our continent when we are not fully utilizing the skills of our females. We cannot transform our continent when we insist that a woman has to work and then care at home. We can build a whole care economy affordably. We can. And actually we can build and export as well. It's easy to do. We can do it. And finally, as we all reel over from the shock of the current crisis we are having in health, I'd like to build on what you said, Your Excellency. Let's look at the health sector as part of our diversification agenda. We can do a lot with it, but we can't do it if we try to do it as countries alone. And I always use this as an example of a concern of mine. During COVID, when the world abandoned us, we developed a fantastic integrated plan. Do you remember? Of how we were going to build our health sector, how we were going to build vaccines. And we actually identified centers of specialisms and how we were going to collaborate to develop it. The world came back and we threw that blueprint away. Just a thought for us to reflect on. So on a positive note, Patrick, we have the answers for transformation. We just have to get on and do it.